Hello, good afternoon, good morning, depends when you are located. Welcome to the Power Platform Bootcamp Edmonton edition. It's really a pleasure for us be here and share a little bit what we are doing together with Gaston today. So we're going to talk about how to create a virtual Power BI administrator, tenant manager. We are going to see I'm playing around Power Virtualization, Power Automate, Power BI, and see how we can create a virtual assistant for gain information about our Power BI tenant. So hello Gaston, how are you? Thank you for joining us.
Hey Alex, happy to be here again. Thanks for the Power Platform Bootcamp. Thanks for having us again. Another session here, another year where we can jump in and share with the knowledge with the community. So I'm really glad to be here again.
Thank you. Okay. First of all, again, thank you to sponsors. Thanks forever for support this kind of event. And a quickly introduction of us. I'm going to start. My name is Alex Rostan. I'm based in Canada. I'm Toronto right now. I work from Slalom as a principal for the Power Platform and Microsoft COE. I'm also MVP is the business applications, Power Platform architect, support different user group, the Power Platform in South America, and also organized with Gaston, Javier, and Cristobal, Azure en el Bar group. And I'm an Uruguayan now, lost in the war right now, but happy again to stay here. Okay, Gaston, please introduce yourself.
Yep, sounds good. So Gaston Cruz here. I live in Seattle market. I also am Uruguayan as Alex. I'm director for what we call the Microsoft Center of Excellence here in Slalom in the US market. I'm solution area global lead for the data and AI space within Slalom. I'm also Microsoft MVP in their platform and data platform architect. Since I moved to States with my family, we create the Seattle Power BI user group, leadership community here, and I also a member of Azure and Bar. We share kind of knowledge, projects, challenges with a lot of different leaders worldwide, basically with LATAM leaders and joined by a lot of Microsoft Corp product teams there. And glad to create that Azure Bar stream with Alex, Cristobal, and Javier. So let's move ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Gaston. Okay, let's start. Okay, first of all, and in that particular moment, the state of the art, everyone are talking about ChatGPT, OpenAI, and so on. So that's the slide that we we repeat in every meeting that we have. Is like artificial intelligence is not the future. Is I say that again, the AI is the new normal, and now it's really we artificial intelligence, it's right here. We should start working. If you are not involved using AI, I encourage you to start working and start adding artificial intelligence to all your application solution and so on, because you don't need to be data science to apply different ways or different manners the artificial intelligence. So again, going start deeping and start browsing about what is artificial intelligence and what you can do better in applying artificial intelligence. Okay, and talking about artificial intelligence, I'm going to recap right now of different service and artifacts that we are going to use in our demo. So as I mentioned before, we are going to create a virtual agent that manage or our Power BI tenant. So we need to add a couple of different service and tools to achieve that. So the first thing we are going to use is cognitive service. Cognitive service is a way to apply AI to many scenarios. So we can use cognitive service in different areas. Like, for example, you can use voice, vision, decision, language. So depend how's the problem to solve or what you want to gain from cognitive service or AI, you can apply in different scenarios. We are going to use today for demo natural processing or LUIS, language understanding, because we need to understand what the user need, what information the user need from the Power BI tenant. Because of that, we are going to use natural language processing to understand the intention. But quickly, cognitive service are exposed by APIs. So whatever your solution is, or no matter if your solution is a little bit older, or you have some deprecated systems or in your organization, if you have the ability to connect to a web service, you can integrate your solutions or your applications to cognitive service just calling a REST API. As mentioned before, we are going to use specifically today LUIS understanding. LUIS understanding is the way to apply a custom machine learning model for conversational natural language text predictive and get detailed information from the user. Right now, we have the language service. So if you are starting working in a new project or in a new solution or just testing, just you can find the language understanding inside the language studio, and the language service is a new Azure service that you can start using as well. So you have LUIS, you have Q&A, you have like extractions, you have the other service that you need right now to create each one different in the Azure. You now got all those services inside the language studio or the language service. And before let Gaston talking a little bit more about Power BI and the other fun stuff, I'm going to say we are going to use Power Virtualization, and for that we're going to use some of the Power Platform tools. And for those who doesn't know too much about Power Platform, this is a global bootcamp Power Platform, but maybe it's someone new. Power Platform is the way to combine robust application like Power App, Power BI, Power Automate, and Power Virtualization, and Power Pay. So it's a quickly way to create business solutions for your company or your problem. So each component of this Microsoft Power Platform built on the Dataverse. So you can connect all these tools with your Dataverse and then continue working with the Power Platform. And other way to see the Power Platform, we can separate the Power Platform, like I used to say, in 3 or 4 levels. You have, the presentations or user interface. So you can decide to create a Power App or a virtualization. So your interface is an application, web, mobile, or a virtualization. It's a conversational AI, but at the end of the day, it's another user interface. So you can start, business process from there. And the same with portals. The difference with the portals is that portal, it's a low-code solution for create web portals, but the thing is that you can add external user with Power Apps and Power Apps. You need to add just user from your tenant, but in Portal you can invite, or user can access anonymously to your information inside the Power Platform. And then you have Power Automate with the different flavors, API, process management, digital procession. You have cloud flows, so you depends of your problem, you can decide which one to use. Of course, Dataverse, that is not just a database. For me, is like a platform of services over the data. That is how I have what I define Dataverse. Is more like just a database. And then, of course, you have Power BI, and that is the business intelligence and the analytics. And last point is Power Virtualization. Power Virtualization is a common way to, an easy way to create a conversational AI or a virtualization or a chatbot. You can say it's a chatbot, but it's more like than a chatbot, because you can create something like a chatbot, but you have the opportunity to connect your chatbot with the Power Automate. And if you know about Power Automate, you can connect whichever system you want to connect with Power Automate, because Power Automate has more than 900 connectors created by Microsoft, but even you can create your own custom connectors to connect with other systems that have APIs exposed. So imagine that you can connect your Power Virtualization with several numbers of different systems. And last thing is just to give in context, we have Power Virtualization, but you can connect and use all the things from the Power Platform, Dataverse, Power Effects, then integrate with the Power Pages, connect with Dynamics. And if you want to extend and create more complex system, you can add Azure Service and continue extend your Power Platform application, or specifically Power Virtualization, creating different Azure resource. So I'm going to pass to Gaston to talk specifically Power BI REST API and what it is.
Yeah, glad to champagne. And it's a matter of what we are trying to kind of accomplish here, and what is the use cases that we found with Alex to kind of share in this global Power Platform bootcamp. That is a little bit of combination of, okay, what's gonna be our thoughts if we are gonna be playing the role of a Power BI administrator for any company, and how we can get access to all those artifacts that lives in our Power BI tenant. Meaning that if I am playing the role of a Power BI administrator, I would love to know what is going to be my number of workspace, dashboards, data sets. Let's say that I would love to see what is the latest refresh in any upcoming data set, or I would love to see what are the usage of my licensing, how many of my users they've been using Pro licensing, what numbers of them they have been using Power BI Premium per capacity, and all the stuff. So meaning that with all the access that we can find in Power BI with the REST API, we have a lot of artifacts that we can get access to, and that is going to be the main goal of our demo today. It's going to be access all the REST API artifacts and ask Power BI around those artifacts with different methods on the REST API. Stepping back a little bit on, for those in the audience that they are coming from another kind of side of solutions within the Power Platform, I would love to mention a little bit of what I see in terms of the Power BI world after 6-7 years in the market. So right now, and coming back from kind of old school of Power BI, making the quick introduction into a production environment at this point, right now what is happening is that basically a lot of different activities that we used to do in Power BI, starting with the downloading Power BI desktop, and then starting getting data, connecting to the data source, and create all kind of the data models, doing Power Query, transformation, shaping of data, then coming up with relationship between our entities in the data model, create the measures for the business logic, and then ramping up with the creation of the reports. Right now, there's a lot of things, there's a lot of insights that you can get through directly from the service itself. So instead of the need 100% of downloading any tool to your desktop, right now you can just grab any browser, let's say Chrome, Firefox, Edge, and directly using your account, connect to the Power BI service, and you can get the whole experience directly using the web browser. So you can go deep on the insights in the Power BI services across dashboards, reports, goals, metrics, and other stuff, but also you have a whole ETL framework in the service itself. So you can ramp it up with data flows, for example, and connect with multiple data sources and have all the experience of creating a life cycle management in Power BI without the need of installing anything on your PC. So that's a big difference right now. The other topic that I would love to bring to the table is, of course, the connectivity that you have in Power BI. It's not just that you have a SaaS solution service application. You also are able to connect with more than 100 data sources at this point, where those data sources can be on-premises, could be on the cloud. You can connect with multiple on-premises data sources like Oracle, Teradata, and so on, but also with cloud and combine all those contents. Let's say that you have a data model that lives in your Azure Analysis services, but you want to combine data coming from the data lake, and then you want to combine with some Excel spreadsheet, you can do that. So there's a whole insight that you can get from Power BI connecting with multiple frameworks. And at the same point, those files can be exporting your data as PDF, as PowerPoint. Right now, you have a really great live connection between Power BI and PowerPoint where you can embed the report itself in your PowerPoint presentation and have the live interactions between artifacts in PowerPoint with Power BI. That being said, and in the next slide, we can see all those methods that we can get from the REST API. So we can call everything that happens in terms of the artifacts that lives in Power BI using the REST API. So from those methods that we will be using with Alex after these introductions, we are going to say, okay, my virtual agent can be interacting with my administrator in the Power BI tenant, where the administrator can be start talking around, okay, give me the reports in my tenant, give me the number of dashboards in my tenant, give me the latest refresh for any data flows. Let me see when was the last time that this data set refresh gave me an error. This kind of things that you can rely on the REST API and interacting with the artifacts to get that sense.
Great, Gaston. Thank you. And okay, as Gaston mentioned, we are going to the funny part of that is the demo. Okay, let me change my screen. Okay. Okay. Going to recap again what the objective of the demo. It's create a Power Virtualization who can get information from Power BI. So as Gaston mentioned, you have the Power BI REST API, so you can get information about, for example, dataset or workspace or dashboard, report, refresh, whatever you want inside the Power BI. So idea is create a Power Virtualization who understand what the user want to know. That is an intention of the user, what the user want to know about the Power BI, and we can quickly respond that. And even we are going to show how we can embed, the Power Virtualization in the Power BI, and the administrator can play around and seeing the inside what the Power BI REST API got, what the Power Virtualization responds. So if you we're going to create quickly a Power Virtualization, because maybe many of you already create a Power Virtualization, but some other not, and has nothing weird to create a Power Virtualization. Just enter to powerba.microsoft.com. If you don't have an account with permission, you can create a trial account for 30 days or 60 days with no problem, or even you can create a Power Platform development account, so you can start testing Power Virtualization, Power App, Power Pages, whatever you want, and even you can create a developer account for Azure, and so you can start playing around cognitive service, and so you don't need money at this point to learn and playing around this kind of technology we are showing with Gaston today. That is the idea. So let's create the first one. I'm going to create build for production, global Power Platform Bootcamp, and me. Okay. Of course, in English. So that is now every day Microsoft is adding more and more language here. So I remember when I start working with Power Virtualization, we have just English, and then I start in other language. So in that years I used to live in South America, so we need the Spanish and Portuguese too, and Microsoft start adding new languages, and now you can see they have like a lot of language there. So probably you can find your language, the language that you need, not your language, is the language that you need in this moment. So you know that the Power Virtualization is ready. So we have already Power Virtualization. If I say hello here, Power Virtualization by default, you're going to say, hi, I'm a virtualization. I can help you with account. This is something that came by default in the Power Virtualization. So if you click in the bot response, that takes you to the topic. Topics are the way that you manage the virtualization, but it's the way that you guide the Power Virtualization how to works, how to respond. So the topics, okay, let's do that again, because the page reload. That happened because when you see the first page, the bot is still creating. So when the Power Virtualization finalized to create the virtualization, reload the page and get everything ready. So hello again. And we can see if I click here, we have the topic. The topic is the greeting. So every topic has trigger phrases. So you can see here we have good afternoon, hello, hello friend, hello, how are you? So that is the trigger phrases. Every time that a user type some of these phrases, the virtualization going to run through this flow of these conversations, if you want to say, okay? And the same if you want to create a topic for, I need to reserve a ticket from Toronto to Edmonton. Again, you need to create a topic, and the trigger phrases maybe are need a ticket, want to reserve a ticket, or I need to fly, or I need to, whatever you are thinking your users can use, you can do that. Okay, let's quickly change here virtualization. I can help you with, let's say, Power BI information, just to say something. Okay, let's remove that. So why can I help you today? Let's save here. And let's test just to show how easy it is to change that. It's just change the message and the message is going to replicate here. So, but again, we want that if the user adds here, I want to know about datasets, the virtualization should understand what means I want to know about dataset or something like that, and ping. So we are going to create a special topic name fallback topic that has not trigger phrases. So that means, okay, let's create here system fallback. I'm going to create here in the meanwhile. So that means when the user enters something that the virtual agent doesn't understand, so it's not greeting, it's not thank you, it's not end of conversation or goodbye, they say, okay, it's something I cannot resolve. So we are not going to put the simple message that, okay, I'm not understanding, please repeat your phrase. We are going to assume that the user is asking something about Power BI and route the conversation from this trigger named fallback, okay? And what we need to do is send the user input to Power Automate to process the user text. You know, Power Automate, in some point, Power Automate is our conversation orchestrator, is the one who is connecting with the cognitive service, with the APIs, and collect all the information, return to the virtual agent, and then the virtual agent just showing the information. But the main part of this is the Power Automate, that is the one who is orchestrate all the flow for the conversation. So here we are going to call our Power Automate. We can quickly create a new one, create a flow, and that create automatically a flow, a Power Automate flow with just the trigger that is a message from Power Virtual Agent, and then the end of the flow is the return to Power Virtual Agent. I have already created one flow because of the time. We have like a lot of steps just to create live. So I'm going to connect with this flow here and then show you how the Power Automate looks like. Okay, let's show you. Let's open the Power Virtual Agent, the flow here. If we click here, then going to drive directly to the flow. I'm going to click on edit. Okay, and you can see here we have the two the two actions that I mentioned. When you create the flow from your Power Virtual Agent, you have the input that are the user input, the Power Virtual Agent input, and the return values to the Power Virtual Agent. You can return 1, 2, 3, whatever the information you want, and even you can receive many input. In that case, we just want the phrase that the user enter, but maybe if you are working and have some other information and you have a context and the user are getting more information, maybe the name, last name, age, telephone number, email, you can start adding here different ones so you can then process all the information. And at this point, we just want to give the Power Virtual Agent a little bit dumb in terms of, okay, I don't know what this guy is talking, resolve that for me, and then just tell me what I want to do. Okay? So we have here the user input. Remember, I want to know about the dataset. Okay, but what I want to know about dataset means, or want to know about dashboard in a specific workspace. What it means. So at that point, mean nothing because we don't speak English at this point, but we create a Lewis model to understand what the user are telling about that. So as I mentioned in the presentation before, we can create a Lewis model, or it's more recommended to start using the new language model, Language Studio. It's the new way. So my thing is, I'm going to show you quickly. If you enter to lewis.ai, you can create a new Lewis service and then create a Lewis model. Lewis service is another service from Azure, so you can create your service directly in the Azure portal and then came here and connect, or you can create directly from the Lewis portal. You can create the service and then create the model. And here we just train a small model, just a test model to understand what the user wants. And for example, dataset admin, we say, okay, dataset admin. And we just add a couple of phrases that we imagine someone could, maybe you say no, but I am asking from another way, but okay, it's just for demo proposed, please share the dataset in my Power BI tenant, dataset administration. We'd love to know what are the dataset in my tenant. And the same thing, with reports, or, saying what are the dataset capacity, administration report, workspace, the same, you say what the users in some workspace specifically. You can start adding different things and just train the model, and the model is going to respond to you. Okay, the user are talking about dataset workspace. So at this point here, when we process the user input in the Luis service, and goes to respond as, okay, Alex, or Power Virtualization, the guy is asking about dataset. Okay, great. Here we are storing some information in SharePoint list and CSV data, just to show later how we can show more information in Power BI and so on. But the key point here in the flow is that we have here that the guy's talking about dataset. So when we ask to Luis, okay, what the guy is talking about? Luis respond, it's talking about datasets. And we can just call the REST API for dataset in Power BI, get the information, process the data here, and then respond to the Power BI. Look, the guy is asking about dataset, and that is the information about dataset that I have in my Power BI tenant. And the last key point here is, as you can see here, this is not a common connector, because there's not a official connector for Power BI REST API, or maybe yes, but doesn't have all the operation that we need. So at this point, we create, and that is a very important point, we create a custom connector to connect with the Power BI REST API. And we create here a custom connector from the Power BI REST API, but you imagine that you can connect with server that you have inside your company or in your business. If you want to create a custom connector to connect a REST API for other service that you have on premise, you can do that. So that is the good point. Okay, so let's see, the last important point is how to create this custom connector and how to add the operations. And if you came here to the left menu in the Power Automate, you see data. And if you span data, you see custom connectors. So click on custom connectors. And okay, if you don't have custom connector, you need to click on here and create from blank or from an Azure service. Or if you have defined it already from an open API file, you can create from them, or even import a Postman collection from GitHub. Now, I have already created the Power BI Administrator custom connector. So I'm going to show you how that means. You need to define in the custom connector, of course, first thing is that is not important at some point, the color, description, and the image is just for branding purpose. But the important is the scan. Should be HTTPS, but okay, maybe you have no problem with that. I use HTTP for testing purpose, but should be HTTPS. Then the host, in our case, is api.powerbi.com because it's the Power BI REST API. And we don't need to put more in the base URL because we are going to try to use all the operation that we can are available in the Power BI REST API. The second point, and this is a key point because it's important to know how to connect the Power BI REST API because of the security, because of course we have to do some things to gain the access to the Power BI REST API. If not, something wrong should happen if you don't have your Power BI secure. But okay, the point is you need to choose, of course, the authentication is out to 0, generic out to 0, and then you need to add here a client ID and a client secret, and then authorization URL, token, refresh, scope, and redirect. But to get the client ID and client secret, you need to register your application. So you need to come to the Power BI embedded environment and sign in and register your application. And I'm going to ask Gaston to explain a little bit more about what registering an application means and why it's so important.
Gotcha. Yeah, jumping in here, what Alex is doing here, and this is kind of a main question from our Power BI folks. That is, we are creating a service account to make it happen to access the artifacts in the Power BI REST API. And for that, we are creating what we call an service principal. That is kind of a service application that lives in the Azure Active Directory. My main question from colleagues around Power BI is, what about if my company or my client is using Power BI, but they are not using Azure at all? That works even in the same line, because Power BI, REST API, and Power BI services is backed by Azure portal. So why we are creating this, and in this experience of development and the embedding setup, we are creating a service principal that allow this account to have access to all the artifacts within my Power BI tenant. And as you can see, when Alex is creating this display name for the application, we also have the ability to give this account to access only for certain artifacts, and with some kind of delegation around who is going to access, what is going to be the artifacts, and the permissions. If we are going to be just reading the reports, reading workspace, capacities, data flows, gateways information, and so on, or we are asking for this application to be able to write. And let's say that we want to edit that information for workspace or reports or dashboards or data sets, we can do that. That is based on the level of access that we want this application to run against the Power BI REST API. So mainly here is one piece that we need to address in the Power BI for this account that the virtualization is going to be leveraging to access all the artifacts in the Power BI tenant.
Wait, once we click on, I don't know to click on register, but once you click on register, there's a pop-up to show you exactly the client secret and the client ID. You should secure your client secret and client ID because you need to get here. So once you enter client ID, client secret, authorization URL, that is the same login, Windows Net, common house, authorized, the same one, the token URL is the same one, refresh URL, scope and redirect that create automatically. Then you need to go to, you have connected your connector to the Power BI REST API. You need to define all the operations that you want to provide. So now we have a couple or now 16 different operations, but you can add whatever operation you want or you need. Here we have as example, workspace, gateways, dashboards, pages, report, dataset, activities, but you can continue add here just to enter to the Power BI REST API documentation and see, okay, what about gateways and data sources? Okay, get data sources. So you can expose another operation in your connector for data sources, or say, okay, dashboards and get dashboards. So here, just to know a dashboard ID and get these dashboards and get all the dashboards. So you can start browsing here and see what is in the Power BI REST API and start seeing what the operations are depends on what you need. So you can start adding and adding more and more operation and get your custom Power BI custom connector more rich in terms of operations. So once we create those operations, we can test them. We are going to have a test create, and then we have tests, and we can just test here what is happening. And then this same 16 operation I have here, if we return to the Power BI, to the Power Automate and click on add an action, I'm going to do that just to test propose and click on custom. You can see here my two custom connector I have on my tenant or in my environment to be exactly. If you click here, you can see here all the 16 different operations we create. Important point, you need a premium license to create custom connectors. Yeah. So, but if you are working on or testing or playing around with the Power BI, a Power Platform license, developer license, you have premium capacity to test and playing around. So, okay, the last point is we have already created all the flow to process the information. The user type something, then we process with language understanding to effectively understand what the user wants, then call the Power BI REST API to get information, and then return the info to the Power Virtualization. Okay, so here we can finalize this part just to click here to unrecognized trigger phrase, and then we can show a message, for example, the response for the Power Virtualization. But I want to show something else. We have created two different things here. And okay, please, Gaston, explain a little bit more what this means and what is useful in terms of the panel and dashboard.
Gotcha. Yeah, we come across kind of a couple of thoughts here for this audience, and this is kind of how we envision to leverage these Power Virtualizations from the one administrator of Power BI, meaning that in the whole interactions between the Power BI administrator and the Power Virtualizations, the person can start asking questions around the Power BI artifacts, meaning how many workspaces do they have in my premium capacity? How many dashboards do we have? How many reports do we have? And after that interactions with the Power Virtualizations, we create an embed experience on a dashboard itself. And then after the person interacts with the virtualizations, we come up with this administration panel where they can see all the artifacts and even switching between those artifacts between workspace, dashboards, reports, and dataset. And if you don't mind, Alex, if you go to the dashboard setting here, you can see in the dashboard itself, you can see all the interactions with the virtual agent. This is just an iframe that we create embedding in the dashboard experience on Power BI. And after all these interactions, because this is just a Power Virtualization that is going to be start talking with the Power BI administrator, it's going to get all the sense of all the artifacts coming to the Power BI tenant. So meaning that in this interaction with virtualizations, the virtualization itself is going to tell the administrator, okay, these are the data sets that you have in the tenant. Those are the dashboards that you have in the tenant. Those are the workspace that you have in the tenant. Those kind of interactions is just a call from the REST API. As Alex mentioned before, this is kind of a really, really open space where you can interact with whenever optional methods you have to access any kind of information across your tenant. So in that interaction with the virtualizations, accessing all the REST API on Power BI, you can get all those artifacts coming together. And that's kind of the back and forth with the virtualizations, and we come across with the report layer to show that interactions and to show how the virtual agent come across with all the responses grabbing the responses. In this case, Alex was saving all the response in one SharePoint library as a list, and we get the connection to create the Power BI report accessing the SharePoint list. So this is come across of all the steps where we can grab all the artifacts and not only interact from virtual agent in Power BI, also grab the response and show those responses in the report layer.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and last thing I want to show you that in the Power Virtualization that we create, if I give me the data set that shows the response, there's start from here, and here we have all the, this is not a, we not process the information and for showing in a good way, but you can see here all the data set are the same data set that we get in the Power BI. Sample flow and report initial, path sentiment, dashboard usage are the same one here, that is not transforming the data, but are the same ones. Okay, so let me share again here. And so now, any questions? Free to start. We're going to stay connecting for the questions, so you can add question and we're going to answer the questions as soon as possible. And please fill out the survey and win some swags there. And again, thank you to Alejandra and all the organizer from the Power Platform Edmonton. It was a pleasure to be here. And you have here our contacts if you want to reach us and asking something. Me particular, you can reach me by LinkedIn or Twitter. Probably is the fast way to connect me is for LinkedIn or Twitter. So Gaston, I'll let you to say goodbye, and again, thank you for showing.
Yeah, of course. First of all, thanks, Alejandro, to having us on this Global Power Platform Bootcamp. It's kind of a pleasure to present again on this global conference. We are happy to be here. Thanks again for the sponsors that make this kind of event happening in global communities. And as Alex mentioned, ping us if you are start trying virtualizations, trying the recipe of Power BI, having a little bit of fun or playing with the recipe to grab some artifacts from there, and happy to join you and trying to answer any upcoming questions. Thanks again.
Thank you.